Hello and welcome to the Red Diamond Wargame podcast. I am your host, Major Kurt Locker Honig, and joining me today is Gunnery Sergeant Benjamin Revenge 3 TAC 1 Deweese, representing 1st Force Recon at this year's Commandant's Cup. Along with his partner, Gunnery Sergeant Crow, their team tied with my own team, representing 1st Battalion 23rd Marines for 6th place out of the 12 participating teams. Gunnery Sergeant, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, sir.
All right, before we get started, please note that all opinions expressed are entirely those of the participants and do not reflect the United States Marine Corps, the units, or any other organizations of which they are a part. Why don't we get started by you telling me a little bit about your background and how you came into wargaming?
So wargaming, oh my goodness. All right. God, I think this probably stems from me as a kid. Playing different games. When I was little, I would play a game with myself. It's kind of funny. So I'm talking like 4 or 5 year old Benjamin, right, running around with my little plastic army man, the little tan and green ones, and I knew what a gun was because my dad hunted all the time, right? So I was like, well, the green one's got guns and the tan one's got guns, and I'm pretty sure they're not on the same side. So I can kind of put two and two together. It don't take much. So I would, set one side up, and then I would be like, how do I beat that? And I would take the other side, and I would put them in some position or whatever, and to beat the the green side. And then I'd be like, okay, now I'm going to reset the green side. How do I beat the tan or the whatever color? And I would just do that for hours and hours and hours. And then, kind of going on, video games kind of was a thing. So I think probably the first, strategy type one I played was probably Age of Empires.
Okay, all
I
right.
used to love that. I don't know if there's any Age of Empires fans out there still. There's a few, but that was pretty pivotal, I think. So I like that one. And this kind of carried it on. I'd play games every once in a while like that. So that was kind of like my early childhood, I guess you could say. In the Marine Corps, other than playing, maybe Call of Duty or Battlefield with my team of guys, we would get on and play together every once in a while. That was interesting. Not quite the same thing, but kind of.
Sure.
Did that for a little bit. I don't really play that anymore. It's whatever. None of my guys still play. They're all shotgun to the winds. Anyways, back in 2021, I got orders to McTog.
All right.
So out in 29 Palms, the lone recon billet out there, and so I showed up, didn't know what to expect. And it was pretty much like day one. They were already running the advanced maneuver warfare course out there. So I just kind of sat in the back and watched them do their thing. And it was kind of earlier on in the course. So I watched them do a TDG or a tactical decision game in the morning where they get a situation. They're putting on what they think they need to do on the map. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. I want to do that. And then in the afternoon, they did the same thing, but it was a war game, or what they would call a Kriegspiel, right? So the German version of that. And that is basically, in about 60 minutes or less, each side has their map, their situation, their mission, their tactical task. And then as a team, about 3 or 4 of the students, they would plan their thing and then kind of execute against an opposing student team with the instructors arbitrating. So we ran those a lot, and I watched that, and it was kind of like this is fun. This is an extremely fun. I think more people should do it. I wish I could have, looking at it, as a brand new instructor, I was like, this is something that I wish I had seen way earlier on in my career. And it was, I thought they were awesome. And so we ran those 4 or 5 times, 6, 7 times per class, in a 5-week class. So for 3 years I was doing that. And I got pretty good at them. Maybe that's because I'm an instructor and I know the maps, but I don't know if that's like cheating at all, but it was like I understand what's going to happen on this terrain, on this map, and I know what the opponent is going to do. It got really interesting because it gets to the point where even though it's a map and it's a different set of students, I kind of understood how most of their brains worked. I
Sure.
understood how they were going to look at the map and how they were going to see the problem set. And there were obviously differences, right? But you could kind of figure out what you thought they were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that tied into a lot of the other things we were doing over there at McTog, like the modeling of thinking enemy thing. I don't know if you've heard of that. That Dr. McCoy and Dr. Nicastros are kind of front running. Anyways, we would do war games or TDGs all the time there, and I loved it. I thought that was probably one of my favorite things to do. And then this last year, they got a message came out for the Commandant's Cup, and I was like, well, I want to do it.
Sure.
Let's see if if I can take what I've learned here and kind of apply it in probably a similar but a completely different thing, environment. And so last year, the McTog team actually ended up winning that first ever Commandant's Cup. So that was pretty awesome to be a part of that. Win or lose. I mean, obviously it's good to win, but it was fun experience to just be a part of it. And then I didn't think I was going to have time this year to get into it, but we kind of made it happen with me and Gunnery Sergeant Crow, my platoon sergeant. So it's kind of been sprinkled in throughout my history for pretty much ever. When I can do war game things, I'll do them. I love them. I think they're very beneficial, or at least they can be, right?
Sure.
But that's pretty much what brought us up to today, I guess.
No, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I wasn't aware that you had spent time as an instructor at McTog, and it really highlights some of the similar goals where by repetition, you are seeing a key piece, you're seeing terrain, and it is helping you understand what the enemy's scheme of maneuver is likely going to be because you're seeing it again and again.
Yeah,
it's helping teach you this is why this is a key piece of terrain, because if they achieve this, then I see this result, or I see this branch of results. And if they don't, I see a completely different branch of results. And now you have the opportunity to try these different methods to either deny that terrain to them, or if they do have it, do something completely different, getting into their OODA loop, getting into something else. So it really does highlight just through that one course the value of wargaming. And then in their circumstance, they're just referring to it as a Kriegspiel, which if we're confused about the difference, where a formal war game comes with its map, its pieces, and its set of rules for how to employ those pieces, whereas a Kriegspiel is much more of a discussion with, you called him an arbiter, or like an arbitrator, a facilitator, someone who's going to listen to a scheme maneuver on both sides, whether it's simultaneous or turn-based, and he's going to, for lack of a better term, internally roll the dice. He's going to help make a decision that says, yes, this was successful, or no, this wasn't. And there's a lot of different ways to unpack how a Kriegspiel can go. But at a minimum, that's a great way to get started. Yeah. Were there any formal games that they were able to play at McTog, or was it primarily within that Kriegspiel format?
It was usually the Kriegspiel format. They had a little, I guess you could call it, war game department.
Still working on that, yeah. Still growing it.
And there were a few of them, and they were working on a couple different of their own that they would play. They were, I guess you could say, like super beta testing phase.
Sure.
I never really partook in that. We never got them to a point where the instructors for AMWIC would pull those into the course. They were very similar to what we played in this year, the CMC or the Commandant's Cup, the Joint Tactics Arena game. They were similar,
all right,
but very different also at the same time. But it kind of along the same premise thought there. So they were working on that one. They had cards, it was like for electronic warfare and drones, and so. I think that's probably one of the hardest things to, I think, get down in a game where, like I'm playing chess, and I've got my pieces and I know what they do and you know what they do. So now, but then you start, adding things like electromagnetic spectrum stuff into games. It's very, very tricky and very difficult, especially if you're keeping it on like the unclassed side, right?
Absolutely.
You could probably have some pretty powerful things, but that's not declassed. So keeping it declassed and making it like effective is very, very, very difficult. So we never really had a good way of doing that, but they were trying to work on it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And that leads us into some of the games that we got to play. Now, you mentioned that you got to participate in Commandant's Cup the previous year. What games did you play both in the qualifying round and in the finals for the Commandant's Cup last year?
So same ones as this year, right?
Okay.
So there was the Flashpoint Campaign
Okay.
Pro, I believe.
Yep.
And then also there was the Company Commander by Hex Wars. The little bit different though. So last year when we ran the Flashpoint, there was no amphibious stuff
Right.
like there was this year. That was kind of a cool addition. It was a little bit more simple. It was kind of like, I think it was based out of like the Fulda Gap in
Okay.
Germany.
Yeah.
So it was kind of U.S. versus Russia. And so that was kind of that one, and then the next one was the Company Commander Hex Wars, and that was kind of U.S. v China, kind of like it was this year, very very similar, with a few differences. We'll talk about those later, but
Yeah, absolutely. And then it was an earlier version of Joint Tactics Arena, which
yeah, that's right. And when that was for, we didn't get to that until we were actually at the
Okay.
the Commandant's Cup. So
Yep.
there was no prelim for that.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to do preliminary when you have people
Sure.
all over the planet, and you're playing a board game. But
Yep.
although if they could make a digital version of that, that would be pretty cool. That would be
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Well, if you happen to be unfamiliar, the gentleman who hosted the Commandant's Cup for us, retired Colonel Tim Barrick.
Yeah, Barrick,
So
yes.
yeah, that's his game, Joint Tactics Arena, which is a tournament version of the game that he developed for the Marine Corps, the Operational War Game System, the OWS.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
they are working on a digital version of OWS, which is called DigiCat, a digital course of action tool. And I've had the opportunity to play that game, and I gotta tell you, they're doing a good job. It's a challenging translation, just because the tournament version doesn't quite do it justice. The tournament version feels very turn-based, but even within those turns, you might make an action, and the enemy is going to have an opportunity to respond. And that limits you for a play-by-email turn-based type game the way you
Yep.
can do digitally. So
Okay.
there's going to need to be some steps taken in order to ever turn that into a truly digital version where you're not just sitting across from your opponent and playing the game, which is what we did anyway, except it was a
Right,
tabletop
yeah.
version.
Yeah.
So,
Tabletop, yep.
so yeah, let's talk about Company Commander Modern, since that's the one that was pretty similar to both. Was there a specific difference you recognized between years?
So yes, a little bit, right? So there were a lot more drones this year. I think that was something that I think Hex Wars, the company, I think they kind of added those in there. There were some the previous year, but not as many. It was mostly like the PLA versions or units would have those. There were a few of the small drones, like those basically the switchblades that we've got now. That was kind of in there, but not to the level that they were this year. So that was a pretty big change. One of the biggest, and it's kind of interesting, right? So the way, and you would know this, right? But for anybody that isn't listening, one of the biggest changes that they made, right, was like the number, or I say the number, but like your points allotted to build your force, right? So inside this Company Commander from Hex Wars, right, there's the Force Builder gameplay type, which is basically you have a certain amount of points, and then every unit you pick equates to a number of points, right? So if you want more javelins, that's 10 points, 20 points, however. You want F-35s, do you want HIMARS, more points, more points, more points, right? And last year, I think they gave us 200.
Okay.
Again, that's an arbitrary number, but what we had this year was 250. Again, kind of arbitrary. However, what I noticed was that when you only had the 200 points from last year, it was a very deliberate decision. There was something you was not going to have. So you had to kind of calculate, what am I okay with not having? And that, depending on what your opponent picks, that could be absolutely a catastrophic decision, right? So, for example, I think the F-35s were, 34, 35 points. HIMARS was basically like another 30, 34, 40 points, right? So the two of those combined is almost 100. And a base unit, depending on what it is almost 100. So if you have a base unit, you would get 35s and HIMARS, and that's it. And there's basically no additional things that you could have. This year they gave us 250 points, and so you could pretty much max out everything, and you could have all the bells and whistles and all the stuff you wanted. And so it kind of made Blue a little bit power heavy.
It did.
Because they kind of had. There wasn't a deliberate decision of like, what am I going to not have? So,
yeah, the observation I ran into was Red didn't have an overloaded setting at 250. It actually ran into a couple of pieces of feedback where I felt like I wanted to keep buying more things out of my pot of money. I couldn't, and I ended up having to choose a lesser capability because it was going to be more effective. The biggest example was going to be they only had two options for anti-air. You could ever have 3 Gideons, or you can have a Gideon and a Type 625 Echo, which that was significantly better at shooting down drones. And so I ended up saving money, but then I couldn't reinvest. I could call it money. I was saving currency, but I couldn't reinvest it anymore.
There was nothing else to put it into. Yeah,
exactly. So I ended up with this situation of like, all right, I've got the best Chinese force available, and it only cost me 215 currency, right? Like
I'm still 35, 40 points. Like I don't even have anything. There's nothing I can spend on this.
Yep.
Yeah. It was fun.
Absolutely. Was how did you end up? Was there anything specifically that you did in and how you allocated your 250?
So I had played before the tournament started. I played a lot of games against myself. So, and I'm pretty sure most people did, right? So this year the competition was what I would call heavy, right? Last year it was kind of like nobody had ever touched those games before. They were kind of maybe into it. Maybe they played the rounds they had to play. Like I don't think there was quite as much like buy-in as there was this year. And so this year when it went from, we basically had, at the Commandant's Cup last year, I think there was probably like 20 people, maybe 30 or 40. And then this year we had over 110, or I think it was over 110 on the dot. So way more people out there. And a lot of the people that were playing this year, I knew were played last year. So okay, well, these guys they're not doing JV mistakes, right? They're not. There are ways to win if you're playing an opponent that doesn't know what he's doing.
Absolutely.
And I think that's probably every game ever, right? But really simple things like, hey, is all of your infantry up in the mechanized vehicles? Because if that vehicle dies, then you lose both, right? And then,
which was a lesson that I learned at Top Tactics, because I could not, the first round, I could not understand why my health bar was disappearing so rapidly. Come to find out, you can get them out of the vehicles. It's like that makes a lot more sense. So rounds 2 and 3 went a lot better,
right? And so once you understand that, you're like, okay, I'm not, I might keep them mech'd up for a move or two, but and so I would play, against myself. It was like how, the way I kind of played it was like I would play as aggressive as I could, right? So but if I was blue, right, and everybody's got a little suicide drone, I'd put them basically online, and my first moves is launch those and get them up, and I would have an entire line across the map, pushing forward. And then in turn two, well, each unit has two of them, so I'm doing it again. And so then by the time, and then usually by the end of turn two, your first line of drones would uncover about 80%, 75% of the map,
Yep. Yep.
right? At which point, now I have, I identified what's where, right? And so I would play pretty much all the maps, and I figured out if somebody does that, what do they see, what can they see, and where do they see by turn two. And so basically my rule was by the end of turn two, nothing can be mech'd up, because if the second it's getting struck by a HIMARS, F-35, something crazy. So a lot of it was just kind of play myself to see what the opponent was going to do to me, and then also what I could do to the opponent. And
Sure.
so that played, I think, a pretty big kind of piece into how I sort of force designed my units. And then it was like, well, if you're fighting the red side, they were really heavy on the mech, right? And so it was like, okay, well, how do I beat mech? I was like, well, F-35s is probably the best thing you get, right? But if you pick that, and again, this is why it's like decisions, right? That's a 35 points out of your allotted, right. 200, 250, but you only get 4 strikes in the whole game. That's it, right? So after you use your 4, that's it. You can't use them anymore. So they have to be used on something that's critical, And then once those are used up, what else do you have that will destroy a mech? Because destroying 4 mechanized vehicles when they've got a company of 14 plus 4 tanks, that's you can see where you're running out of. Like, I don't have things and stuff that could kill mechanized things. So maybe I've got Cobras, maybe I've got HIMARS, maybe I got extra jabs, and I played with or I played around with both red and blue, and it was like, how do I have the maximum amount of stuff that will do what I need it to do? And again, it kind of is like, you can have more things, and that means that they're probably not as good, or you can have less things, and it's all really good. Again, you have less things, it's not as good, but again, you have less of them, right? So, and again, for anybody that doesn't know exactly how this game works, right? Once you lose a certain percentage of your starting force, it's game over, right? You automatically lose. So it kind of default cuts it at, I think, 60% losses, right? So
60%.
Having more things on the map means that you can lose a lot more things, and you're still staying above that 60% of what you started with,
Yep.
So it was kind of finding the balance between, I want a lot of stuff so I don't get, even if I take casualties, it's not catastrophic, but I have enough things to project power where I need it to, and take out the enemy, whatever he's got, right?
Yep.
So, or however he's playing,
Was there anything you wanted to see on the red side that we didn't get access to?
So I think there were a few things that I would have liked to see from red. I think their artillery should have been beefed up way more.
Gonna agree with that. Yep.
They also have, HIMARS equivalents, so I think that maybe that probably the red, like, if we're being honest, the red artillery was what I would say almost like we're wishing away a capability on the opponent's side, where it's like, I'm playing a game and it's really not a big deal. Like, I didn't care if they had artillery or not, because it wasn't going to hit anything.
Right.
It probably wasn't even going to suppress anything.
That was my observation when my opponent, because my priority had always been, I want to get rid of their indirect fire assets, because usually it's just represented as 1, maybe 2 firing points.
Yep.
And then my opponent revealed his indirect fire, and there's 9 cannons, and they each. It's like, okay, so this is throwing my strategy way out. This isn't going to work. Except that then he would use all 9 on 1 asset, and it didn't suppress it. It's like, okay, so I'm just going to not worry about this anymore, which we know that's with 9. If they have any type of ISR, they're going to get some type of precision eventually. Just out of 9 shots, they're going to bracket. They're going to be able to have some type of at least suppressive effects. So I thought that was disappointing.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing that I didn't like either too was right. So begin the nine, right? So there were the two options, right? You could have a battery of 9 off map, or you could have 3 individual assets on the map, right? What I didn't like was, and that I think they should change, is that it's maybe make it 3 batteries of 3,
Sure.
and then also it was kind of unfair because if you had F-35s, you could use 1 strike, which I'm assuming is 1 missile, but you would destroy all. It's just a graphic on a map, but it would kill all 9.
Right.
It wasn't like, oh, it's a step down. Like, hey, it got struck. Now there's 8. Hey, it got struck again. Now
Right.
there's 7. It was like, if you hit that thing one time, it's all 9 are gone. Then all red artillery's off the map. Off the
Yeah.
table. They've got nothing left.
Which I
So
find interesting because I feel like if I paid attention enough to the dice rolls, because I do like Company Commander Modern, that it does show you the dice rolls.
yeah, yep,
And if you have a mortars section, it'll tell you whenever you kill a tube. So it has a mechanic
it
where
does.
it'll kill a tube off at a time. And yet for these, just like you're saying, like you would use a missile strike, and it's like, okay, this is at best you're killing 1 tube with a missile. With a bomb, I'll grant you 2, maybe even 3 if they didn't have good dispersion for a 500 up to a 2,000 pound bomb.
Yeah.
But at some point, we are starting to wish away some of this indirect fire. Not to mention that at this point, we're wishing away their air support. There was no
Yeah.
fixed wing
There
capability
was
on the
none.
red side.
Nope.
And so I think that's something that also we could tie into uh, our next game, command. Excuse me. Now I'm getting all my games
Yeah.
mixed up. Uh, but there was no air. There's no enemy air
No, no. I
in
think
our.
there were rotors, and those were pretty much terrible. They would always miss. It was like I don't even know why I'm even.
Yeah, I even went for a quote unquote right weaker, a cheaper aircraft because it had heavy machine guns, and I
Yep.
figured having heavy machine guns would be a better effect against a JLTV than a missile, and I think that's a fair assumption, and it did no,
It did
it made no
nothing.
difference. So there was,
Yeah.
but yeah, for that was something else I observed in the now I'm blanking on the game again. Flashpoint, excuse me, Flashpoint Campaigns
Yeah.
Pro.
Like,
So there was no enemy air in that side either.
no,
And
he had,
granted,
like,
it's a
the 2
difficult
drones, I
situation.
think is all he had. Yeah.
I think it's a difficult scenario anyway. We're talking about an amphibious assault, and I appreciate that they wanted us to do an amphibious assault.
Yeah.
There were some big assumptions there, and what were some of your pieces of feedback for that scenario overall?
So I thought the scenario was great for a war game. We got the two sides against each other, and we'll make it difficult for you know both sides, right? Depending on how you play, depends on kind of how if your opponent does. Like you could play again 2 different opponents, and like one course of action is beautiful. People will think you're basically the heir of Napoleon, and then you do that exact same thing against somebody else, and he's like, "No, I'm just gonna go left instead of right," and now you just got obliterated immediately, right? So, and the one thing I didn't like about the only thing I didn't like about that game was there wasn't a whole lot of I guess you could say like intel before. So
Sure.
you're just like, I see the map, kind of like the Krieg spiel that we would have ran at McTog during Amwit is like, these students have never seen this map. Here's their situation, and they're like, I have no idea how my opponent is going to play this. I don't even know how he's arrayed right now, which would indicate one or the other, or some hybrid thing. It was just like, nah, they're over there, and you're like, okay, cool, and all my stuff's on the boat, and I got to get it off, and like, okay, I don't need and it was pretty complicated. So like figuring out how to like do the serials and like
Yes.
I just don't think I ever figured out how to get my ACVs ended up on shore somehow. Like I don't
Yeah.
know, man.
Yeah.
There they are. I guess cool.
They're there. I
They're there now.
I sent
But
them off way too early. They spent the whole game just tooling
yeah.
around in the
Mhm.
water trying to get to the shore. I mean, it's just one of those lessons learned. Unfortunately, in my qualifying round, my opponent gave up on me after like a turn,
Oh
and so
no.
I never got to actually test out all these different
And play
things.
through. Yeah.
So I'm very hopeful that we get to do an amphibious assault again. I think the best thing that they could do would be to create the type of map that would force a little more operational thinking in addition
Hmm.
to the tactical thinking. Because I think
Yep.
it does a great job of blending a little bit of the operational and tactical level because you're not telling each unit what to do, you are creating orders and then allowing the small units to go and execute those orders. That's a great different mechanic than coming to Commander Modern where you are tasking every single entity on the map. But I think the downside is that you have to kind of nerf red a little bit too much,
Hmm.
and I think we're up to the task. I think there is a way where you could task your F-35s to initially conduct some type of combat air patrol,
Hmm.
so that at the very least you can either prevent enemy air from influencing your operation, or if they do something crazy like they're trying to strike your ships, like you have that inherent capability, like maybe it defends, but it gives you now an opportunity to strike their air base.
Yeah.
That you could do something like that,
Yep.
so that you get to do. Now that being said, you take all of that away, we still ran out of time in order to get out
Yeah.
all those
Yeah.
orders. So
Oh yeah.
there was a handful of areas that I would have enjoyed seeing a little more generic tasking, which most of them are. For like the air, it was just hunt. I could give them
Yeah.
areas that I wanted them to hunt. I think that's great. ISR had screen. I wanted to give them an order that said, I want you to look for something in particular.
Yeah.
If you find this, I don't want you to look away from it, which, in my opinion, that has its own list of risks. But it's
100%. Yep, yep. I
but it
agree. That
might
was that was one of the things that I was a little bit. I don't know if I was upset. No, that's probably too drastic of a word. It would have been nice, right, while I'm playing, like, hey, I found tanks, or I
yes.
found this enemy entity on this road. It would have been really cool if I could have gone down, my ISR button and it had like reconnaissance missions and be like, I want force oriented reconnaissance
Yes.
on this unit. You're just going to track that. You're just going to stay overhead, and wherever that unit goes, you're going with them.
That's right.
And it would have been cooler. Like, I don't need to, like, well, where do I think he's going to be? Because if I don't put, my next checkpoint exactly where he's at, I'll just lose him. Like, no, that's a drone. We see him.
Yeah.
I
And
can maintain eyes on, and that it would have been cool to have that option.
I would almost like to see the ability to create a hasty attack guidance matrix
Ooh,
where
yeah.
it's like I could assign ISR and it's one of those like I'm just going to triage it. I'm going to give you this route. If you
Hmm.
see one of these, that's it. You're there. You're going to track that guy because now I'm creating, in addition to my attack guidance matrix, I'm creating my kill chain. It's already
Yep.
in there because I've assigned F-35s to kill that asset.
Yeah.
So I don't even now have to issue that order. My ISR identified that asset. My F-35 already knows that, hey, go kill that thing.
That's the priority thing. And like,
And
oh, there's two things in the same hex. Like that's cool. I've
yes,
got this attack guidance matrix. You know
yep,
that the priority, HPTL number one
that's
is
right.
HIMARS. So if you see HIMARS, you
Yep,
strike those first. If you see tanks, shoot those first. Like don't be shooting a ZBL when they've got
that's
tanks
right.
and command nodes next to you. Like that, I don't care
and
about.
and there's inherent risk in that because that ISR, if it say it finds that HIMARS before it finds the anti-air, then I might
Yeah.
not know about the anti-air until it's too late. But I am
Hmm.
assuming that risk.
Yep.
That's a decision that I've made, and that's what we're trying to test.
Hmm.
Does it make sense to create that type of attack guidance matrix, high payoff target list, so that I know that I'm assuming the risk that maybe there's a Yidian that I never saw, and it might shoot my F-35 out of the sky. All the F-35 pilots I've ever met insist that won't happen.
Yep.
But
Right.
again, as a
Yeah.
commander, that's what we're testing. We're
Yeah.
learning that. So does it change my process? Like maybe I set it up in such a way it's like maybe the first thing I look for isn't the HIMARS. Maybe it's the anti-air so
Hmm.
that I can completely clean the battlefield of that threat. and then turn my F-35s loose. It's a
Mm-hmm.
decision we should get to make, and I hope the game eventually will allow us to do that.
Yep.
It's those are the types of decisions that I feel like JTA, Joint Tactics Arena, really did enable us to employ.
Mm-hmm.
What strategies did you try to employ in JTA? How do you think they did?
So, oh man, that was a fun one.
It was.
Super complex, and also right. So this is a dice rolling game, right? And I'm not gonna lie, I don't go to Vegas because I don't roll good,
I,
right? So I already knew I wasn't going to. It was kind of, I mean, it was bad. It was
yeah.
bad. It was so bad. Even the what are the and a non instructor, but the arbiter,
Facilitator.
the
Yeah.
facilitator, he was like, I've never I've never seen somebody roll this bad, man. It was like, every missile I've got on in my entire arsenal was like on one target, and it was like rolled a one, one,
Oh,
one. It's
jeez.
like I miss every time. Like you gotta be that's 18 minutes. Like I can't. There's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
But I had that idea going forward and again I played it last year, and that was so that was what I ran into last year, right? Is I roll low because I just terrible luck, I guess. And so I had to take a step back, and I was like, I'm not going to win because I roll good. I must create a plan that will allow me to win, agnostic of rolling or not rolling.
Right.
And so I was kind of, I had, what I would call like, talk back to that attack guidance matrix thing was like, here's my high payoff target list. It was like, what do I want to focus on first? And I'll just throw everything at that I can, which was basically his Navy, which is
all right.
naval ships. I was like, as long as he doesn't have those, then there's a lot of air defense and a lot of strike capability that he's losing. So I was like,
That's
I'll
right.
just focus on that and defense. And I was like, as long as he doesn't take my cities, my towns, my objectives, then it's a 1-to-1 game, and he can't he's going to gain a massive amount of points over me, right? Because again, for anybody to listen to this in the future, like if you took a city on this board game, right, that was 10 points.
10
but
points,
it's
that's
not.
right.
It's 20
Because your
one
opponent
side
is losing
starts with
10.
5, yeah, and the other side starts with 5. So if I take one of yours, you lose 10 points and I gain 10 points. And
That's
so
right.
it's like taking even just one of those can drastically change the outcome. You could be neck and neck right up until that event happens.
That's right.
So basically, it was set the conditions that he cannot take from me any of my cities, and then basically prime myself into a position where the second my opponent makes a mistake, and by mistake that's I move something away from my city. So he has to be
That's right.
aggressive at some point to take my cities. When he does that, or if he moves them outside of a town,
Yeah, you're
the second
poised.
he does that, I'm driving a hammer.
You're exploiting it. I love it.
I'm going to split him. I'm going to isolate this one objective, which I'm going to take by default because he has no one there. So that's
right.
what I waited for the entire game. And I think it was my last probably 2 or 3 turns. I think I ended up having 2. I took 2 or 3.
Oh, wow.
Of
Nice.
my opponent's towns. Yeah, it was at least 2. And one of them wasn't even like crazy. He had the city, and then he had like his base hex, which is where you have to start off of it. It's 1 hex away, touching. And so I basically leveraged the kind of the gameplay where it's like, hey, once you move into the zone of control for a unit, your next one can go through. So I calculated it beforehand. Was like, how much space do I need? What units do I have that can make that movement, even with the degraded, zone of control effect? And so I basically put all of my like mech and tank assets up front, and I even put like my artillery up there.
Nice.
So it was within range, and then basically I massed everything on one. He moved his unit out of it, and I was like, as soon as he did that, I was like, oh, that's it.
That's it.
And it was the next turn, basically air assault deep.
Yep.
Took his rear city, and then mechanized. And it was one of the division orders, right? Which
Yeah.
that was one of the cards you could play, so I could move 3 different brigades, and I basically had 2 brigades attack 1 city, and then another one attack his rear one that he didn't have anything on it. So basically, I got
Nice.
two off the get go. Was off the get go at the very end.
Yeah.
In one turn, it was like there's nothing he could do at that point. So there's like 20 minutes left in the game, and he just lost 20 points, and I just gained 20 points, and now I've got 3 battalions of tanks in a city. Like you're not taking that back. Not with those game mechanics.
No,
So,
it's such a compelling game. If for no other reason, then I feel like anyone that I've discussed all have a different approach.
yep.
Now, a lot of it does kind of summarize like I want to take away these key assets for these reasons, and then I'm going to hit them hard whenever this or this happens, which is amazing. Like that is a very fundamental tactic, like operational mindset, and it's great. That game allows for so many different ways to do it. I think there's something significant about all of the missile, all the strike capabilities don't actually gain you any points, but they are incredibly important to being able to do what you want on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't address them somehow, they can absolutely ruin your whole day. Whether it's shooting down your aircraft, it's preventing your airborne capability, it's just sinking your ships from far
Yep.
away, and you're just like,
Yep.
"What's going on? Like I'm out of shields. I don't understand what to do."
Yeah.
There's so many different ways to cut it. That I described my assessment of the game as like I just spent 3 hours playing this game. I lost, and I want to play again right now. Like I
Yeah.
want to reset the board. I want to go again, and I can't think of a higher praise for a tabletop game.
Yeah.
It's one of those I cannot wait for him to slap the table and say this is good. We're going to publish, and I don't think it's going to be for wide distribution. I've had the fortune to attend the OWS facilitators course that he runs.
Okay.
It's just one of those you got to keep your ear to the ground for when that next one comes up, and convince someone in Pendleton to be willing to send you to Quantico for a week,
Yeah.
because learning that game is incredible just in the PME sense. Like you're learning so much about adversary capabilities. It's just forcing you to look at the map in an incredibly unique way, which is a beautiful quality of wargaming in of itself. Like, look at this map and tell me what you think changes whenever you play a game and you're getting your butt kicked, and you don't really understand why until you begin to understand the capabilities and limitations of the enemy weapon systems, of your weapon systems, what is in theater, what could be in theater, and Tim Barrick's game, OWS, does that better than anything I've seen, for sure. And I'm really interested in Joint Tactics Arena getting out to the fleet, because I think it's going to get people interested in the actual OWS game. So I think
I bet it would.
I
'Cause
think
it's
that's
fun.
an
Yeah,
underlying
it's
thing.
the joint tactics. You play that again, like you could lose, and you're like, I want to play again.
That's right.
I want to play again right now. Like I got more. It's like it's almost like when I was learning chess, as a kid. Even if my dad would beat me, or usually let me win every once in a while. But it was like I would play it, and then you get done, and be like, yeah, but I want to play again. I want to play again right now. Like let's
That's
reset
the board. Let's do it.
Reset. We're doing it. It's kind of funny. We have a chess set in our office, and we play it. That the second there's two people in that office, somebody is playing chess.
I like it.
And they, they'll get done, and it'll be like the next deal will come in, or they'll be like, no, flip the board, like we're running it back again. But yeah, the joint tactics definitely. I don't know what it is, but because it takes forever. It is not like
It can't. No, that is not a fast game.
2-minute game. Yeah,
No.
there is no like 4-move scholars mate like there's in chess. It's like this
That's
is
right.
going to take hours, but it is fun, and you get to. I think you get to play around. And there's so many different ways to play around with it and kind of interact with it, and what you want to do or how you want to counter it, what your opponent's doing. And so it's extremely fun, and it's a really good way to practice. Like last year and even this year, I had it. I've got the what is it? This is like my little cheat sheet that I've got. So I've got my tactical tenets written down.
Nice.
For, 1 tac 3. It's like what's the decision? How do I gain an advantage? Principles of warfare, moose muss.
Yep.
And so I'm like, how do I? And honestly, I think it's really interesting. We like to use this maneuver warfare thing, and so it's almost like if you start talking about mass, people are like, I don't.
Well, that's not maneuver
we
warfare.
don't like that word. And I'm like, that's the most powerful word. Like, it is the end all be all of all of them, other than like maybe surprise. But if you can
That's a big
map, and
one.
it's not just I have more bodies. It's like I'm massing effects. I'm
That's
massing
right.
things on this one, and I think the JTA does that really well. Like
Mm-hmm.
I put in soft or recon. I've got artillery and I've got aircraft and I've got
Mm-hmm.
EW and I've got drones and now I've got this thing coming in. I've masked this map,
That's right.
all these effects on this one spot, and now I've cracked that open, and there's nothing you can do about it.
That's right.
So I think in that that regards, I think that's probably one of the best things that JTA can teach us. Like there's a bunch of different ways to utilize those principles, even if you're not cognizant of it, right? You're using them,
That's right.
and it's just a great way to kind of showcase like that's how that thing is supposed to work if you do it the right way.
But first, I was going to say that is the most beautiful expression of mass that I have heard in a while. It is completely overlooked. You're absolutely right. Hiding behind this idea, like, well, mass reeks of Civil War, Napoleon battlefields, where you're putting as many people in front of the enemy, and that's completely incorrect. The
Yeah.
describing as massing effects on a certain point that you know is going to yield the most effect is exactly what that that tenant is leaning towards.
Hmm.
So more people need to understand that. All right, so um, we've got Revenge 3-Tac-1. You already said there's a chest set in the ready room. It sounds like there needs to be a copy of JTA in the ready room.
I wish there was. If I need to figure out how to buy it or acquire it or something, because
Absolutely.
my dudes that I got over there right now, they were actually upset because they didn't know about this war game tournament until like it was kind of too late to. I finally told them, I was like, hey, we're gonna do like this thing. They were mad. They
All
were like,
right.
well, we want to do it, and I was like, the whole platoon. I was like, I didn't know I had a platoon of nerds. They
All
were
right.
like, we
So
want to do it. So I don't know. Next year there might be a whole
so first
whole
force is
platoon.
coming in strength. Got it.
Yeah, they're
All
probably gonna.
right. That's
Yeah.
that's important to note. That's important to note. If there was a commandant's wargaming list to supplement the commandant's reading list, what would you like to see sitting in the ready room, ready to pull out? Now, obviously, your room is a little different, right? Everyone is
Hmm.
a seasoned professional by the time they reach Force Recon, which is exceptional. They're all professional warfighters. They all
Hmm.
are seeking to improve how they think about warfare in addition to how they physically perform warfare. What would you like to see in the ready room?
So I think every office should have chess. Another one that I used to play as a kid, and ironically enough, one of my teammates, or right, platoon mates, he bought it. He brought it in Stratego.
All right.
I don't know if anybody's ever played that, but that
Classic.
is a
Classic.
pretty classic, phenomenal one that you can do. You can knock out a game in 20 minutes. It don't take 4 or 5 hours, right?
That's right.
Again, if we could get that JTA out, I
Hmm.
think that would be absolutely phenomenal. To allow, just different units for different companies, or make it a competition day, or something like
That's
that.
right.
So something along those lines. I don't know too many board games that exist right now that really cut that, especially at like a hey, you could do it. What would also be cool, right? If anybody ever wants to hit up McTog, they've got all the data for all the Kriegspiels that they run.
Yep.
And I'm sure if you're part of an infantry unit, you probably have somebody that has gone to Amwick. They have access to it. McTog will just send you out the basically, the what do you call it? The scenario, right? So you got your stuff for red, your stuff for blue, and then all you really need is a map at that point, and then you could run a Kriegspiel war game whenever you want, and that would be at least different than the JTA thing, and I think that's a potential option. It would be awesome to see units, kind of leverage all of those different things, if when they have time. Time is I don't think it's lost on anybody that's in the Marine Corps right now. There is no time.
That's
Like,
right.
it's the absolute enemy.
That's right.
So maximizing it as much as you can,
No,
is
I love that.
critical. Is
Yep.
critical.
And you absolutely mentioned a couple of things that I'm hoping to see in the future, like having that kind of tournament, whether it's an unofficial, just first force getting together and
Hmm.
you're running a tournament. If it's a 20-minute game of Strategio versus multiple rounds of a 3-hour evolution of JTA. I think everyone benefits from it. You know, whether you're going to do a sweet statue, some type of trophy or something, a championship belt, that's fine. But the point is, the more they play the game, the better they're
Mm-hmm.
going to understand their role, the better they're going to understand how it all comes together in the big picture. Everyone wins. We all improve.
100%.
Yeah, that makes me
100%.
nervous though. Top Tactics is going to be a lot tougher if we've got all of Force Recon spooling up and
Screw it
preparing
up.
for it. So
Yeah, just I'll bring my computer, let them play all the hex wars and
that's right.
Flashpoint. They'll learn the controls. It'll be pretty good.
Yeah,
They loved it though. That was we've got corporals and sergeants in there. I pulled it, let them watch me play it a little. I even let some of them play it. One thing that they really liked about it was learning the enemy's equipment. It's like,
that's
oh,
right.
that's a ZBL-09. Like, and here's the data. Oh, it's got that's the kind of gun it's got on it. It's got a 30 mil. It's got 100. It's got what? Deweese, what's a red arrow? I'm like, Google, man. Like,
Yeah,
and
there
like,
you go.
oh shit, that's ATGM. They got two of them. Like, oh my god. So
That's right.
they're learning about more than just gameplay. They're
Mm-hmm.
learning about what the enemy's got, and like unless you have a very like, hey, we're gonna have a class on this, and even if you did, everybody's gonna forget it because nobody cares. But the second you're playing the game and like that thing just smoked you, you're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I know what that thing's got now, and it's like you'll remember it better. And so
That's right.
they were picking up on a lot of that stuff that they didn't know, which I think is absolutely critical. For the guys that are going to be actually on the ground, seeing the things,
Mm-hmm.
knowing what that thing has, knowing what it can do, and so getting that information out as fun as you can, which typically correlates with retention. Is however that works. I think that's what we really need to look and drive towards, and I think wargaming is a way for that, 100%. So
Absolutely, and I'm stoked that you think that same way. That's absolutely what I think. That's why we're doing this, because we want more people to know about it, not just in First Force. So I appreciate the efforts
yeah.
that you're making. My goal is to do whatever we can to bring it to
Mhm.
FMF, to bring it to MFR, and get all these Marines participating. Just like you said, it's knowledge, it's retention, it's going to make the Marine Corps better. So that's what we're trying to do. I really appreciate your time. Again, thank you so much. If you come into contact with any other Commandant's Cup participants or anyone else that you think would enjoy or have something to contribute to this Red Diamond War Game podcast, please let me know, and we'd love to get them on.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do. I'll reach out to my guys over at McTalk, see if the two that showed up, see if they're into that.
We'd love it.
I'm sure that they're busy too, but I'm sure they would love to get on here as well. But thanks for having me, sir. I definitely appreciate it.
All right. Thanks so much. You have a good rest of your day.
Yes, sir. You too.